Well, hello everyone. Like Manny Make 25 right here, as you see right here, is talk about for 24th midnight, and basically this right here is like a kind of like a counting math type counting is like you activity I went ahead and put together right here, and basically talk about right here like for midnight. And well, we're like wondering to where I'm like, what does it usually mean that whenever the clock that comes to midnight? You have right here is like a the little arrow, and along with the big arrow right here pointing for 12 o'clock midnight. And like it could be like for AM and PM. So you're like Warren to where at the time a lot of times used to always wonder to where that why what was the difference between these different time zones. One of them was for for the afternoon and then at night, and one of them was for the early morning. So you're like Warren to where I'm like, yeah, that from AM and PM, and you're like Warren to where I'm like, it's like if it's going to be like what you say is like, for AM, that that there's like I guess you could say a particular saying for it's like between 12 hours and between early morning and then a part of the evening, and of course towards the afternoon and then late evening, and as well as for night. So you're like Warren to where if we were to be doing the countdown, like say the math arithmetic to where it's like, yeah, 5 hours in between. So you have right here about 5 hours right here. This right here would be about, lunchtime. I guess between 10 and 12 o'clock would be about lunchtime, and as well as, for dinner time. And then, and like between the hours of like yeah, some people I guess they say that between 5 and maybe at 9 o'clock would be like dinner time. So you're thinking about, and then that means that it gives this time odd time until about 4 a.m. before people usually get up, and then about between 5 and 6 they may have some breakfast or something. Like Warren to where about what time do we usually have brunch? But anyway, but you see right here, some of the mathematical type problems right here is like you talk about for the times too, like you say right here for for 12 and 12 times 12, for 144. But I'm like, yeah, check that out on a calculator too. And I'm like, yeah, you calculating about these days, like, and you have right here is like for 2400. And I'm sure anybody who's familiar with like military time, that I can remember that a job that I used to work at to where they a lot of times went by military time to where they count to where between 12, like you have right here, I think you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and on one with 12, and then whenever it came to the afternoon hours, and it would go from 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So you're like Warren to where that with the military time to where that I'm like usually that like 2200 would usually be like about 10 o'clock, and then for 2300 would be for 11. So I remember that a lot of times the schedules to where they go by say with the military time, but on the other hand, that like Warren to where that for the 24th midnight to where you're like Warren to where a lot of times that anything involving to where if it's going to be maybe a paycheck or anything like that, wondering to where each time that the clock that strikes midnight, and just thinking about, I'm like, really? I'm like, if that's something you look forward to where is that basically mean to where a new day or a new hour or something like that, or something certainly special is going to come up. By the time the sun rises, and they likely say by midnight that more likely that is like a a new insurance plan, and then by the time the sun rises, by 6 or 7 a.m., and that's whenever you can start using it, something like that. So just thinking about, I'm like, by the time the clock that comes up to between 11:30 and midnight, and then you're like wanting to where after about maybe 5 hours, and then by 7 a.m. something like that, and then they want to know what else. It's a book for the schedule, but it's like on the schedule. But anyway, but you see right here is that with this clock right here, I would had put together right here is like an activity to where I'm like, yeah, whenever the clock that strikes midnight, you're like Warren to where okay, Does that mean like ding 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 ding? But on the other hand, that whenever yeah, a lot of times it's like, why is it that a lot of times you're like Warren to where if you're going to be at a party and sometimes the parties are going to maybe last until about midnight or 1 a.m. or maybe 2 a.m. So let's just say if it is around New Year's time, then a lot of times like I say that a lot of places wind up closing right around midnight or 1 a.m. something like that. But then on the other hand too, especially on the weekends, to where a lot of times, back when I was a kid, I used to always think about, yeah, that whoever that was had enough energy to where they were able to stay up, past a certain time, past 9 p.m., something like that, 9 at night. Like sometimes we may think that the 8 or 9 o'clock is not really that late, but then if you were busy with doing stuff maybe all week, if it's going to be doing your studies, or if it was working somewhere and you're like wanting to or check what time it was, and you're like, hey, like it's only 9 o'clock. Well, it seems more like 11 o'clock, or it seems more like midnight. So I'm sure that whenever you keep pretty busy, it's like for that you keep track of time to where it may seem a little bit later than what it really is. So you're like wondering, oh, it's only 9:30. If anybody wonders to where really between 12 and 12:30, and wanting to know about, yeah, that with the arrows right here, point right here for midnight, but let's say for you for like 12:30, like talk about say between, well, we may think that about every 30 minutes that more likely that could make a difference, huh? But maybe every 30 minutes, maybe every hour that could make a difference. But then on the other hand, that I'm like, really, have you really counted about, really, I would say about yeah, I'm like about 100 seconds. I'm like, how many seconds are equal to a minute? It's like you have right here. It's like for 60 minutes would like being equal to an hour, and then like yeah, if we would actually do the counting to where be working out the bills it is, and like thinking about 24th midnight to where that by midnight that you're planning on having this amount of things on the agenda you to be worked on, and then one of those is like taking care of a bill or putting something on the schedule, any events that come up. So they're like Warren to where a lot of times that sometimes we're like Warren to where why is it that the time midnight seems to be a little bit exciting to where, especially on New Year's, you're like wanting to, especially on New Year's and maybe on a birthday. I'm like anybody say that, especially on a birthday, that the day before that the person was born, and like you're thinking about them, like between 11:30 and 12 o'clock, you're like wanting to where I'm like, hey, happy birthday. So I like wanting to where, yeah, any time around midnight, they're more likely that somebody's, if you're still awake, and then somebody may call and say, hey, happy anniversary, or hey, happy birthday, or hey, congratulations on for graduation, if it's graduation, or if it's maybe a newborn baby, if it's going to be anything, special occasions or anything like that, that sometimes you're like wanting to where that a lot of times that people may choose the hours between 10 and maybe 12 o'clock, a.m., to call people at late night hours and say that, something's going on within it the next, until 8 o'clock comes around, or until 7 a.m. comes around, that they're going to go in and call between these times right here and say that, well, in case if I get too busy, happy birthday or happy anniversary or something. So I know some people that more likely do that. They maybe that they don't really want to call that person at a certain time, and like wake them up if they would have gone to bed around 9 or 10 o'clock, something like that. But anyway, but like working with the math right here is that really that we I usually think about is like yeah, by the time the clock that strikes midnight and something to look forward to, and one of those like thinking about it's like about every 12 minutes that more likely there's going to maybe more likely be exciting news. So it's like it may not be each and every time, but one of those you could be bad news. Well, it's like for okay news, well, good thing it got worked out. But other than that, like I say, for the time and schedule for for 24th midnight, it's like Kelly activity, Manny Make 25, and thanks for watching.